will not be part of the colectivos.
Yeah, for example. So, and I found even in consejos comunales, in parts of the city where they vote like 70% vote for Chavez, but you can have, I found spokespeople for in consejos comunales that said they themselves are so-called ni con Chavez ni con la oposición, o sea, not with Chavez and not with the opposition. So they're always called the ni. But they had a strong community work, so that was recognized by the community. And the community didn't care if you vote for Chavez or not, if you're organizing the health committee or whatever. And it's interesting because it's something, for example, we can even find in the writings about the workers' councils in the early 20s, where the people were writing, suddenly the importance of party disappears because it's not important. It's about the concrete things you're doing. It's not about the party.
Yeah, let me just mention something additional about that. I know about communal councils in the east side of Caracas. And the east side of Caracas goes like 90% most of the time against Chavez, and they have communal councils there. So it's not something people tend to relate those communal councils to Marxist-Leninism or something like that. It is an organizing figure that was approved in the constitutional change that we approved in 1999 with the new constitution, and it's important to clarify that. And basically that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, in the east of Caracas, even some of the former assemblies they had built against Chavez, to mobilize against Chavez, started and transformed themselves into consejos comunales. And it's like, we have to say that really the really hardcore right-wing opposition doesn't participate. They don't want to. They don't want people's power. Why should they build it? You know. But on the ground, the people they're doing different things, because in the east of Caracas, in the upper middle class neighborhoods, they don't have the same problems like that. So they do different things. They organize whatever parties with the neighborhood, or for example, they knock on the door of all the older people to see if they need medical help, or they organize different things than the ones in the poor areas. But they have in Valencia there are also quite a few opposition community councils. It's in certain areas where they are, and in all these areas, even in the barrios, many people from the opposition take part, because when it's about your roof, about your neighborhood, it's, you know, there is no political color in your roof, and the basketball court also doesn't care if you're part of party or not.
Is there conflict between the colectivos and the consejos?
There had been, in some parts of Caracas where the colectivos are very strong, it was at the beginning sometimes a problem that they worked like some kind of mediation. So you couldn't go directly to the people, but the relationship was many times mediated through the political organization, because they got a strong grip on the ground. But in other parts of Caracas, the colectivos were fundamental to set up the community councils, because they were the ones who were better organized, who knew better, who knew earlier about the law, who pushed the whole thing about the community councils. And now I would say there is no conflict anymore. It was at the beginning some problems, because it's also about, like, you know, influence and everything. But no, now not anymore.
There are military arms out of the colectivo instead of the consejos comunales.
The community council is not
and the colectivo, they have a military section or arm.
They have a military section, but there's some really poor neighborhoods where some of the colectivos are.
You mentioned the
Alexis Vive. Don't know now really about them concretely, but there are some colectivos where they have armed people, because usually in the poor neighborhoods where they, like in the really, like these ones or others, where even the police didn't come in, it was many times the colectivos that, for example, kicked out the drug dealers.
I see.
So it was something that happened mainly during the 80s, late 80s and early 90s, that many, like you have in some, whatever, favelas of Rio or whatever, where they have some really local militias that don't even, like, go beyond their 2 blocks. And in these 2 blocks, they kicked out, for example, the drug dealers or whatever.
And those colectivos have been there since the 70s or 80s. It's not
Yeah.
something that you can
No, since
associate to
early 80s at least.
new government in Venezuela.
Alexis Vive is an offspring of the Coordinadora Simón Bolívar. The Coordinadora Simón Bolívar is an offspring of the Tucumaros. The Tucumaros in Caracas were founded around, were an offspring of the MRT, Movimiento Revolucionario Tucumano, that was founded in 81. So it's a story. It was when drug and gang violence got really hard in the early 80s in Caracas, and suddenly many little groups came up in the neighborhoods just to organize themselves against the drug dealers. And if you have to deal with drug dealers, it's difficult with just flowers.
Oh, I wanted to ask you something about the community councils, but first, when you're in the beginning talking about, I think, Lenin and Marx, I don't think that's not my reading of what they said. Lenin, I think in the proletarian revolution, Lenin gave Kautsky, he said, yeah, we made a mistake under war communism, thinking we can build some kind of state socialism. And they decided that he said advocating building some kind of state capitalism instead for an extended period of time. So I don't think he's really saying that he was aimed at building some kind of state socialism. And I don't think it's really accurate that Marx or Lenin thought that, well, once you take care of the material once you have the material conditions and material relations of productions, everything will take care of itself.
No, I didn't say that Lenin said that. I said that many Orthodox communists after said that.
All right.
But they didn't say that. No.
Because even in Cuba, Castro had a big campaign in the 80s, with a rectification campaign, saying that the road that we're going on to build socialism in Cuba is just going to lead back to capitalism, and we have to do something new to educate people in a new, live a new kind of society, like Che was advocating a new man in Cuba. When I went to Venezuela in 2008, the thing that struck me the most was how so many people are now involved in decision-making in their communities. Like here, it's only really a small % of people just are involved, care about what's going on in their community, the rest of the world. The rest of the people just live in this little bubble where they feel safe. But in Venezuela, I could see that more and more people were getting involved in the world and seeing that they could change the world, and were going into meetings to help change the world. But I think it was still a minority there. But I could see in some community council meetings I went to that if these things spread all over the country and they involved a lot of people, it would be a new kind of state structure that could be built as a popular state structure that represents everybody in the country. But I don't really see that that's really progressing that far. So I don't really hear that much about it anymore. For a couple of years I heard a lot about it, and then it's kind of, don't hear very much about it anymore.
No, I think it's definitely progressing, and it's getting more and more. But the problem is that usually just the people really directly involved know about it, because it's not something, even the Venezuelan TV doesn't speak about that. You won't find anything like that. It took them I gave them the film, like for example, I gave the film to the TV stations in Venezuela in January last year.
The government one.
The government one? Yeah, the other one.
Government.
Yeah. They didn't decide anything up to January, and then they decided just because I finally called the director of TVs. And I told him, guy, got his film, it's going around the world, has been shown in so many places. And Venezuela is the place where it just has been on in some self-distributed community councils and stuff. And then he pushed his own people, and in 2 weeks they decided to buy it. But so that's something also that in another thing of this whole process, that you might have some institutions where most of the people, it was no armed revolution. They didn't go to Miami or whatever the ones that were before. They're still in the same institution.